Welcome to Zan Khan Live, where everything is discussed and nothing is censored. Today's topic is interfaith dialogue between the Abrahamic faiths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Today, to clarify our misconceptions from the Muslim perspective, is a prominent Pakistani Islamic scholar and an academic, Dr. Khalid Zaheer. Welcome to our show, Dr. Khalid Zaheer. This is Zan Khan. It's such a pleasure to have you on Zan Khan Live, sir.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. I'm really grateful that you have considered me worthy enough to be a part of your program.
Walaikum assalam, sir. And I'm going to get to tricky questions because this topic has really fascinated me when I study Islam and when I read the Quran. And I want to get to a direct question. Are Muslims allowed to genuinely be friends with Jews and Christians? Because there is a notion that isn't so. Because some scholars do push the opinion that Jews and Christians are enemies of Muslims. I don't know. Please clarify.
Zen, before I answer the question, I promise you that whatever I say is going to come from my heart. I would not try to be politically correct without really intending what I'm trying to say is what I mean. My answer is unquestionably, unequivocally, yes. We have been allowed, given permission to be friends with the entire humanity, more particularly the Jews and the Christians. There is no reason whatsoever, given my very humble but clear understanding of the Quran, that we have been asked to either be not friendly with Jews or Christians, unlike the popular understanding of Muslims.
Sir, if what you say is true, then why is there a debate every Christmas, every New Year's, if Muslims are even allowed to wish the Christians a happy holidays? Why is there a debate every year?
I think it's because of the fact that Muslims, generally speaking, have not been able to understand the message of the Quran. It may seem to be an exaggerated statement, claim, but that's the truth. Muslims, many of them, read the Quran with an understanding that each and every word that is mentioned in the Quran is to be taken literally in the way it has been expressed. Now, if that's the principle of interpretation you are following, then I don't blame them, because we have verses that mention that Muslims are not allowed to be friends with non-Muslims. That's what I'm interpreting the understanding of many Muslims. Muslims are in particular not allowed to be friends with Jews, with the people of the book, because they are their enemies. However, as hopefully we shall see in our discussion, that these verses have a particular context. And that context is not what I am trying to insert into the text. It is the text itself which is clarifying that the Jews and the Christians, about whom the Almighty is asking the reader not to make friends, were a particular category of Jews and Christians. If some Muslims also have the same attributes, they too would be not worthy of being friends by somebody who is a true believer. So
What sort of
unfortunately,
attributes?
well, if you read, for instance, the famous verse that is normally quoted is from chapter 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 51, which says, believers, don't make the Jews and the Christians your friends. They are friends of each other. And if anyone amongst you is going to make them friends, he is going to be deemed to be a part of them, to belong to them. Now, if you read this verse, you would find that the words used, expressions used for the Jews and the Christians are al-Yahud and an-Nasara. In Arabic, when a noun is preceded by al, alif lam, it's like the article the of English. Al would either mean all, all people, all objects belonging to that particular uh, description category, or it would be some specific particular people belonging to that category. So, in other words, al-Yahud would either mean all Jews of the world, right from the beginning till the very end, all of them, and all Christians of the world are the ones whom Muslims, if they are true believers, they cannot make them friends. The other meaning of these two expressions could be that these particular Jews and these particular Christians, the ones that are pretty much clear in the context of these verses. If you ask me, how can I explain it? How can I justify it? I will request you to move on to verses 57 and 58 of the same surah, same chapter. This fact is accepted by all jurists, all interpreters, all Muslims, that the best interpretation of the Quran is the one that you find from within the Quran. So these two verses are telling believers not to make those people their friends who ridicule their religion, whether they are from the people of the book or they are non-believers from any other category. So in other words, verse 51 has been clarified by verses 57 and 58. And the clarification is that there are Jews and there are Christians in the context of, the description of the verses that were being revealed, who were making fun of God's message. And the Quran mentions in these verses what exactly they were doing. They were making fun of the way believers were being invited to say their prayers. So they were ridiculing Azan. So the Almighty says, no one from amongst them is to be made your friends. I say that in the light of these verses, I am not allowed to make even a so-called Muslim my friend if he is making fun of my religion. But it has got nothing to do with the many good Jews and the many good Christians who are present in the modern times, who were present in the earlier times, who could be made friends. And the last thing that I would like to say in this particular matter is that if we were to interpret this verse 51 of chapter 5 to mean that no Jew and no Christian anywhere in this big world is worthy of becoming our friend, then we cannot understand the verse that tells Muslims, at least Muslim men, to get married to the women of the people of the book. So, I mean, if you are allowed to marry a woman, and marriage means that you are in a husband-wife relationship, and there cannot be any better friendship, a relationship of friendship than a husband and a wife. And the Quran clearly gives permission to Muslim men to get married to the women of the people of the book. So what I'm trying to say is that if we read the Quran carefully and we do not follow the principle of atomism, wherein we read one verse at a time, taking us away from the context of the entire book, the way it has been presented, then we will reach the kind of conclusion which many extremist Muslims have reached.
If what you've said is correct, can you quote any other verses from the Quran that speak positively about the people of the book, Jews and Christians and Nasara?
There are a number of verses, but I would mention in particular one passage, which probably is the most prominent. in chapter 3, Surah Al Imran, verse 113 to 115, the Almighty begins by saying, Laysu Sawa, they are not all the same. That is, the people of the book that we have criticized in the earlier verses, all of them are not the same. Min Ahlil Kitab, from among the people of the book, Ummatun Qaima, there is a group who stand firm on the commitments that they have made to God. They pray to God, they prostrate before Him during night time, and they urge each other towards goodness, and they stop each other from doing what is evil, and they hasten towards good tasks, good deeds. And you know how it ends? Whatever good they're going to do, it's not going to go waste. God is going to accept all their good deeds. So I think this is a praise that the Almighty has made of these people so lavishly, then one starts envying them, that the Almighty has praised some of the Jews and some of the Christians so much that it seems that they are acceptable to God. God likes them. God loves them.
Now, what I've understood by your opinion, is there any classical scholar that is of a similar opinion and that has explained the Quranic context as you have?
You know, it's very interesting. Uh, I tried to look at what the earlier scholars have said. In our scholars of the modern times, there are many who are traditionalists. They would not say anything different from what the traditional earlier scholars have said. Some scholars, interestingly, have not bothered to explain this verse. There are others who say something which doesn't really make sense. They say that these are the Jews and the Christians who used to be Jews and the Christians, but they had already converted to Islam. Obviously, the simple question is that if they had already converted to Islam, why on earth were they being called people of the book? But luckily, there are still other scholars whose opinions I came across and who are very much orthodox. They say that this verse is very clearly mentioning, and you know, the scholar that I heard very clearly said that God is not biased. He is very fair. He is balanced. And he has given due credit to these people, which they richly deserve, and has mentioned that there are exceptions to the rule, that the people in the Arabian Peninsula, Jews and Christians, many of them had turned their back on the message of God, but not everybody. So we do have mentions. I unfortunately right now the place where I'm residing, I could not access all the earlier books, but I can tell you that the modern scholars, well, the modern day scholars who are orthodox, I informed you they can be divided into three categories. Those who have not bothered to explain this verse, those who say that these verses are actually talking about Jews and Christians who had already become Muslims, and there are still others. Like, for instance, I tell you, this famous lady, Dr. Farhat Hashmi, who is a well-known exegete of the Quran, and she is known to be following the traditional point of view, you know, and she has very clearly mentioned that the Quran is talking about the good Jews and the good Christians who were Jews and Christians when the Quran was talking about them.
And we also see a historical a context where the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, when Muslims migrated to Abyssinia, and King Najashi, who was a Christian, he treated the Muslims with real kindness. I mean, if we see the historical perspective, um, how could it be so that at one side Muslims are are migrating, and King Najashi is treating them with kindness, and at the same time Muslims are supposed to hate Christians? That also wouldn't make sense, right? I mean, your interpretation would make more sense, and the verses would make more sense if we look at the historical perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Zen, I do tend to agree with you. But if you're going to present this particular argument before a traditional Orthodox Muslim, he would say that, you know what, uh, the Quran has evolved. There was a time, yes, there was a time when Muslims were asked to be good to non-Muslims, to Jews and Christians. And Najashi, by the way, realized that the message that is being presented to him is from God. And therefore, he treated the Muslims who had come to his land nicely. He was very kind and generous to them. But the Orthodox Muslim would say that the earlier verses have been abrogated, they have been annulled because of the later verses, which clearly mention that, we have to make sure that we are firm against these Jews and Christians. What I'm telling you is an interpretation which I'm offering from within the text. The interpretation that I mentioned is the one that is actually uh, making the Quran appear consistent. If you go by the interpretation of the Orthodox traditional Muslims, then the Quran would appear, God forbid, contradictory. And one of the important principles that the Quran itself has mentioned of interpreting the Quran, which makes sure that the reader comes to the confident conclusion that the Quran indeed is a word of God, is the mention of the Quran in verse 82 of chapter 4 that says that had it been from anyone other than God, had this Quran been from anyone other than God, they would have found in it a lot of contradiction. So the Quran is free from all contradictions. If God wanted Muslims to not make friends with Jews and Christians, then he should not have allowed Muslim men to get married to the Jews, Jewish and Christian women. But the Quran has done it, and therefore it really means very clearly that the interpretation that says that all Jews and all Muslims are the ones with whom Muslims cannot be friends is an incorrect interpretation.
Dr. Khalid Zaheer, do you foresee a future where we could expect at least the Abrahamic faiths, the Jews, Christians, and Muslims, to work together for the betterment of this planet rather than fighting amongst each other and, um, you know,
Zen, uh, I would like to include all human beings, every human being, not just Jews and Christians, but let's include Hindus and Buddhists and even atheists. And we must make a world which is peaceful, where we are respecting each other's rights, we are respecting each other's views. Now, this last point might surprise you, but I mean it. If Muslims were true to their ideals of presenting Islam to the entire world, uh, they need to do at least two things to make sure that their ideal is achieved. Number one, there should be an atmosphere of peace of an environment where we can talk to each other, where we are not belligerent, we are friendly with each other. Unless we create that environment, we will not be able to help others understand our point of view. Let people ask questions, let them be critical of our understanding, but let them also listen to our point of view. That's the only hope. The second thing is that if we were to present our point of view to the world at large, uh, it is the Quran which tells us that we should start from the points of commonality. Ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawain bainana wa bainakum. Come forth and agree to those things which are common between the two of us. You start from there, and then we have a dialogue. Uh, if there is any hope for the future, uh, this has to be the strategy. So my answer is that most certainly, uh, uh, future in the future, if Muslims behave properly, likewise the Jews and the Christians and other religious communities of the world, they must strive to create an environment where they are talking to each other properly.
Why I always focus on the Abrahamic faiths is because this is an idealistic approach, and I agree with you that everybody and all humans should come together. But why I always focus on the Abrahamic faiths is because at least we have a similar religious tradition, fasting, God, prophets, so we can relate to each other theologically. We understand we have similar prophets and etc. Um, and it would be good if, at least if we start from here and then asked all the other people to come together, but at least there needs to be a starting point. So this is why I always mention the Abrahamic faiths.
I,
uh,
I agree with you. I agree with you. But let me just put across one understanding that I have in mind, which caused me to make the statement that I made. You know, it is the responsibility of the Muslims to explain this world. We claim that we have God's message fully preserved, the last of his messages. Therefore, we must explain why there are religious differences, how they have come about. And when we are going to do that, we will have to explain not just the Jews and the Christians, we'll have to explain everybody as to how is it that Hinduism came about and Buddhism came about. And once we start doing it, I am very hopeful and optimistic that we can reach a stage where we will start talking to each other properly.
I want to get to the last question, and since I'm a journalist, I want to take a little more of a political angle as well. After understanding your research, I think that the misunderstandings between the Muslims and Christians and Jews is more political than theological. What do you think?
You know, the two cannot be distinguished from each other, unfortunately. It so happens that uh, because people have a peculiar way of understanding their text, they start approaching others from that point of view. But on the other hand, uh, people are meeting each other. Muslims, there was a time when they invaded vast lands and were the rulers for a very long time. And they found that they were in the presence of Jews and Christians whom they had subjugated. They had become their subjects. So, this understanding also had a political angle to it as well. Mm, but honestly, I believe that this understanding of many Muslims that we cannot be friends with Jews and Christians has got more to do with uh, religious interpretation than with politics. Politics followed, but I think if you look at the political ramifications of this tension, they're not very welcome. And every good political leader would like all peoples of the world to come together. Look at Pakistan. I mean, isn't it that we are facing this huge problem of minority, the way they are being treated? I mean, no matter who the party in the government, nobody would ever want that there should be tension uh, between different religious groups. So I think if you look at the political understanding or ideals, uh, everybody would want that people should not use religion that could cause them to be divided and to be creating tension. I think primarily it's a religious issue, and it's an issue of religious interpretation. And this interpretation has become popular because people uh, have these emotions with them, which cause them to strongly believe uh, and be attached to their point of view. And unfortunately, once people have a certain point of view and certain belief system, it's not easy to alter and change it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid Zaheer, for being on Zan Khan Live and discussing interfaith harmony. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
This was Dr. Khalid Zaheer, a prominent Pakistani Islamic scholar and academic. We were discussing interfaith harmony, especially from the Muslim perspective. Until the next episode of Zan Khan Live, keep on watching Zan Khan Live. This is Zan Khan. Take care. Assalamu alaikum and goodbye.